Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining the Aon Advancing Disability and Equality Awards webinar. My name is James Cawley, and I'm the Business Development Executive with the Irish Centre for Diversity. I'm a proud white disabled man in my late 20s, nearly 30, from rural County Longford. I have a skin fade haircut and some dodgy gelled hair this morning. I am wearing a white shirt with black imprints, and I'm sitting in my powered wheelchair with a backdrop behind me saying the Irish Centre for Diversity. I want to start this morning by welcoming you all here to this webinar, and I'm really excited as a proud disabled person to be the MC for this event. A big welcome to our award sponsor, to the shortlisted finalists, and the award winner. We are also joined this morning by ISL interpreters Sarah Garvey and Vanessa Cunningham too, so welcome also. For all those tuning in, please do let us know in the chat function where you're zooming in from today, and we'd love to hear from you. As you know, the Irish Centre for Diversity provides a number of services to support businesses and organisations across the country in a number of sectors in diversity and inclusion. We provide advice, consultancy, training, and our Investors in Diversity accreditation mark, which is supported by IBEC. If you want to get in touch about any of the services that we provide, you can contact us through our website, which is www.irishcentreforddiversity.ie, or you can contact us on the phone or through any of our social media channels, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter, and we can help to support you on your D&I journey. In February, we hosted the first National Diversity and Inclusion Awards in Croke Park, which celebrated excellence in D&I across all areas. I can still remember the energy and sense of pride that radiated from each category that night in Croke Park. It was really a night to remember. So, of course, this webinar today is really important because it allows us the opportunity to share the amazing work that organisations are doing in the area of disability equality to enable us all to thrive and to be our best selves and have a sense of belonging at work. It is important to mention at this point that while Aon is a leader in equality, diversity and inclusion and a proud holder of the Investors in Diversity Gold accreditation, to maintain the award's integrity and transparency, they, unlike other sponsors, were excluded from entering the process and also had no part in the judging. The same applied for us in the Irish Centre for Diversity. Now, on to the running order for today. To start, we will hear from the award sponsor, Oisin. Then we will hear from the shortlisted finalists and the amazing award winner. Just to say as well, Fianna Fáil do send their apologies, and Oisin will outline some comments from the judges for Fianna Fáil. We will conclude today with a short questions and answer session at the end. So if you have any questions throughout the webinar, please submit them through the Q&A function here. Finally, before I hand over to Oisin, just to note this session is being recorded and will be available on the Irish Centre for Diversity website. Everyone is muted except the panel. And just to say, we'll be finished up. You'll be glad to hear by lunchtime, 1 p.m. for lunch. And don't forget, you can put in your comments and questions in the chat and Q&A function. Without further ado, I'm pleased to introduce our host for today, Oisin O'Gogain, HR Director, Chief People Officer at Aon. Oisin, over to you.
Thank you, James, and good afternoon to everybody. I very nearly said morning, but we're almost at midday. Really nice to meet you all. As James said, my name is Oisin. I'm a white man in my 30s. I'm from Kildare, although I live in Dublin with my partner Peter for many years now. I have short brown hair, and I'm wearing thick black glasses today. And my background is my home office where I'm based today. Because like lots of our panelists and finalists today, I have a cold that I seem to have had for a couple of weeks at this stage. But it's a real pleasure to be here today to talk to, what an incredible list of organizations and finalists for us all to understand a little bit more about, what put them in this category. Before I get into that, and where we will have Donal, Natalie, Caroline, and Edel tell us about some of the actions that warranted their finalist position in this, I thought I would just tell you a little bit about what we do at Aon and why this award has been and is very important to us. So I work for an organization called Aon, Lots of people will know them because we were formerly the big sponsor of Man United, if there are football fans there. What we do at Aon is we effectively are a consultancy business, and we consult on all things related to people and risk. Both very interesting topics, but we are not maybe the insurance company that we are likely perceived to be, and instead, run a broad range of services right across the world. In our global organization, we have about 50,000 people. In Europe, we have about 20,000. In Ireland today, we have about 750. And a really important part of our culture is our diversity inclusion strategy. And for us, that simply means the way we show up and the blend of people that we have in our organization at any point in time. So we are really intentional about designing for diversity, and have seen the true impact positively that can have on not only our colleagues but also our clients. We recognized this year that one area where we hadn't managed to excel or really succeed with great success was in the area of advancing disability awareness. So when the opportunity to support this award arose, we absolutely jumped at it. Because what is so interesting is we get things like, hopefully we'll get from today, understanding about how we get better, what true best-in-class organizations are doing. And that's what I'm really looking forward to showcasing for you today through my conversation with the panelists is, what good really looks like for maybe the rest of us who are, on that ladder of progression with plenty of opportunity to get better. So, really looking forward to those conversations with us all now. So without maybe further ado, I suggest we get straight into this. If you have any questions throughout, please feel free to put them into the chat box. I will keep an eye on those to make sure I pick those up. And if I don't manage to do so, we will have some time at the end for some Q&A as well. So the first of our finalists joining us today is Donal McLean-Whelan from Access Earth. And I said to Donal earlier, I'm really looking forward to hearing about you, Donal, but also about Access Earth. But maybe before we do that, I'd just maybe take some comments from the judges. And while a small organization, the judges were highly impressed by the innovative policies that have been in place, in particular, the idea of unlimited health leave. So I'm sure that does what it says on the tin, but I suppose the construct of it is highly interesting to us all. But Donal, perhaps you might introduce us, tell us a little bit about Access Earth, and then we'll have some chat about that.
Absolutely, Oisin. So thank you so much for that. And also thank you to James and everyone at the Irish Centre for Diversity for today as well. So I'm Donal McLean. I'm the COO of Access Earth. I am a white male with long black hair. I'm wearing glasses, a tweed shirt, and a tweed jacket and a shirt. And I have facial hair that can only be described as scruffy. What's called Access Earth has been around for a number of years. Our origins have come from the experiences of our CEO and my co-founder, Matt McCann. Matt has cerebral palsy and uses a rollator to get around. And the very first thing Access Earth did in the absolute origins was to create a crowdsourcing application for individuals with mobility impairments to share information about businesses and locations that they can shop, eat, and experience. Since then, we've expanded the app as well as all of our services to be a complete consultancy firm where we're disability-led and access-focused. So as well as our usual suite of services that we offer, we also provide our kind of flagship product, which is a feedback system where we can close the loop on customer accessibility experience with businesses to help them address all the issues that they might come across. With regards to your policy, the policy that you mentioned, Oisin, there, you're very right. And what we like to do is we trust our employees, we trust the people that work for us, be they contractors or employees. And what we do is we always engage with individuals that either themselves have a direct relationship with accessibility issues or disabilities, either themselves having one themselves or having a close relationship with it. And as a result, we tap into that passion that everyone has with regards to accessibility and disability. And when we find that have that passion, we have a lot of trust together, and they tend to tell us their needs. And one of those needs is that unlimited health. So if you do have a long-term illness as part of your disability or your accessibility needs, knowing when you can take that time off for to address any of the health issues you have, either be it a consistent series of medical appointments or just requiring time off to take time to recharge, it needs to be that trust instilled within the employee. And we find that worked for us an awful lot.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And I think the word trust in the context of work has become so important to us all. And, often I find in particularly the area of disability where, organizations ask colleagues to disclose, any needs they may have, that word of trust has become so important. It is the basis of understanding how your employer would react and support you. Donald, very keen to hear a little bit more about Access Earth. I love the term disability-led as how you introduce to organizations. Could you tell me a little bit about how that shows up, what that really means for you and the team?
Absolutely. So as I mentioned, Matt McCann is our CEO, and he is my co-founder. We very much started Access Earth with trying to solve a particular bugbear that Matt had growing up with cerebral palsy. Navigating the built environment is a challenge, absolutely, unto its own right. Adding any other barriers to it is impossible, and then trying to find any relevant, coherent data about how to do that effectively, forget about it. So based on those frustrations, Matt came up with the idea for the Access Earth platform. And as we engaged and reached out to other individuals, we realized we have to broaden our horizons from physical mobility issues to sensory issues to cognitive issues and so on. And that allowed us to engage with a much wider support network of other organizations. So we always are very much looking to expand our network to other organizations that serve communities with other specific access needs, and also to learn from them. So we can always augment our services, augment our platforms to make sure we're accommodating as many needs as possible. And in that sense, that's how we're disability led. And our team grows as well as we engage with these networks. And we always want to always engage individuals with those direct lived experiences. So that's kind of how we're disability led.
Yeah, it's fascinating, and I would encourage anybody who on the call here today who is interested in understanding further about what you can do. I'm very mindful of, as you said, Donald, disability, some visible, invisible, what type of adaptations you may need to think about, or what is most supportful to individuals either using your organization or otherwise, really helpful for us to understand a bit more about that. Could I maybe just take a moment and go back to the unlimited health related leave? Yes. Is the leave limited only to those maybe with a longer term medical issue, or is it accessible to everybody in the organization?
Absolutely. So in a similar sense as most reasonable accommodation policies that we have in place, we work directly with the specific employee to assess what their most obvious or most apparent needs that they might have be. We have it as non-consecutive leave. So if you need to take 1 or 2 days off during the week or throughout the months, that's absolutely fine. If you might need to take longer leave, longer sessions, then we negotiate with the individual to see exactly how long they think they might need, and to see would they like to augment their work schedule, augment the way they work, or even just take a dedicated amount of time off. So it's not like we say, away with you, come back when you're ready. It's more like, hey, how can we best support you? Because we find, especially the people we work with, they don't like not working. They don't like not doing the mission that we're doing with them. So it tends to be kind of focused on how soon they can feel ready to come back, and if there's a way that we can support them with that too.
Yeah, it's really innovative, Donal, and I can see exactly why the panel of judges were so impressed by it. I am mindful of time, and we will have opportunity to take some questions after. But for now, Donald, thank you very much. I know you're representing a fantastic team there. Thank you very much for sharing with us those insights. A couple of minutes is never enough. I'm sure there's lots more we could cover, but for now, I really appreciate you taking us through that.
Thanks so much, Oisin.
Great. I'm going to now move on in our session to hear a little bit more about a different organization and some of the efforts that they are making to advance disability in their organization. So I'm joined by Natalie Keogh from Allianz, and Natalie will shortly introduce herself. But before doing so, I just maybe wanted to again comment on some of the reasons the judges selected Allianz as finalists for this category and award. In particular, there was a survey completed in 2022. It sounds like a self-ID campaign around disability, and we'll hear some more from Natalie on that shortly. But also have been hugely impressed by a partnership with AHEAD, and it is categorized as willing, able mentoring. So we're going to hear a little bit more about that from Natalie too. But Natalie, you're very welcome again this afternoon. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you and your role in Allianz? Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks a million for that. I'd just like to say it's an absolute honour to be included as part of this panel. And a part of that night there back in Croke Park in February, it was a very overwhelming night, and we're very humbled, and it's great. A big part of why we undertake this journey and are really proud to be part of the webinar series as well is also to learn, to share our experience, but also to learn. So my name is Natalie, I'm Natalie Keogh. I am a DE&I lead for Allianz Ireland. I also look after the wellbeing, have a lead role there. So I am a white female. I'm in my 40s, keep it very general. Today I'm wearing a pink top. I have a green ribbon on for the Sea Change organisation, which reduces mental health stigma. I'm sitting in my kitchen, and I'm hoping that my dog will be quiet today. The postman has been and gone, so I'm hoping that I'll have a clear run of it today.
That's always a worry, Natalie.
It's a gentle sweat was brewing earlier as the postman approached. So really happy to be here today and to share my experience. So one of the things that can be quite daunting and was daunting for us as an organisation is where to start. So there's so many aspects of inclusion and diversity, but I think the key is we're just trying to make our own little corner of the world a better place, both for our employees and prospective employees, and then leading from that to the wider society. So that's at the heart of what we do in terms of inclusion. So for disability, one of the main partnerships that we have, as you spoke about earlier, is the AHEAD and the Willing, Able and Mentoring role. So this is a partnership with AHEAD that places graduates in employment. And one of the key aims and objectives for us is to widen the access of mainstream employment to graduates with disabilities. So they are 9-month to 12-month placements, and we started in 2020. And this has led to a 200% increase. And one of the key learnings for us is people have good hearts and great intentions, but sometimes I think they're just a little bit nervous of saying the right thing or doing the right thing or the wrong thing. So a key measure for us was supporting the line management, and it has been a great success. And one of the best recommendations I can say is to reach out to AHEAD. They have been a wonderful support. They do an assessment with each of the graduates. It opened our eyes to a whole world. And it was actually, from a selfish point of view, it's an untapped resource as well. So we have made some permanent placements out of our graduate program. So that has been a wonderful asset to us and both to the individuals. And I think anything that we can do to make our society and the employment, because there's the war for talent, and it's an absolute untapped resource there. So we are definitely benefiting from it. It's a mutual beneficial role. One of the other aspects of disability inclusion that we are working with is As I Am. So we entered into a collaboration with them last year. Really proud, again, only starting out on the journey, so a lot to learn and a lot to kind of undertake there. But we are part of their communities in practice since the end of last year, and we're hoping to build on this this year and into the future, and again to hopefully be accredited as an autism-friendly employer.
Yeah. It's incredible, Natalie, some of the partnerships. I am very familiar with Allianz. It's a big organization in Ireland. And often the bigger the organization, the more difficult it is to embed new programs, awareness of DE&I and the priority that leadership's team place on that. Could you give us a little bit of advice based on your experience on how you have broadened awareness on disability inclusion in particular?
Absolutely. And it's kind of coming at it from a twofold approach. So it's really from the top down, and it's getting that buy-in from senior management. And I have been very lucky in that respect. Our outgoing CEO, who's actually retiring at the end of this month, has been a great supporter of all things in terms of gender and disability and LGBTQ+, all different aspects. And it really is that tone from the top and empowering people. So what we've done is we have an annual survey each year as well, and we score in the high 90s every year in terms of people's feeling safe and secure in the trust, and that they feel that they're not prejudiced in any way in terms of any of gender or disability. So it's really good. So that's an inward looking, but sometimes we could be too quick to congratulate ourselves. And if we all look the same and we all are the same, well, then we think we're great. But so it's important for us to get a measure from the outside as well. But one of the things that we did last year was the self-ID questionnaire. And this was to kind of build on that and our annual engagement around inclusion. So 5.5% of our employees that participated in the survey, they recognised as living with a disability. So this was the first point, because I think that's what we're all missing is a baseline data. We don't know what we're doing in terms of how reaching our policies are. So this was a really important first phase for us, and we're hoping to build on that this year. But as you said and mentioned earlier, it's really about trust. It's what we're doing with that information and how we are going to then build policies and make people's lives better for it.
Yeah. It's interesting. The experience at Aon, Natalie, has been we have similarly run a self-ID campaign, and I think initially there's a lot of reluctance with sharing what is very personal information about you as an individual with an organization. And I think you make a really fair point, is once you can demonstrate how you've used that information to advance disability, either awareness or through activity, that's really where you build and gain that trust. Really interesting as well to hear about the graduate intake, which seems to have been a fantastic success. How do you go about, hiring, recruiting, the candidates for this? Is it all, through Ahead? Do you use your own resources? It would be great to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, Ahead have been a wonderful resource, and they're really supportive because, again, we didn't know what we were entering into. So we had Ahead come in and speak to our senior leadership, and then also down to team leader. I think it's important that team leader that's the person that has the most impact on employees. That's their day-to-day. So you can have all the wonderful HR policies and accommodations. And I think they're an important foundation, and that's the groundwork. But it's empowering those managers. So we had Ahead come in and speak to those managers that will have that direct impact on the employees and the graduates. And then we went through a whole recruitment process. Ahead, we gave them a number of job specifications. They looked at our roles and to see what could be adapted. And then they put forward a pool of candidates, and then we had an open competition at that stage.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And when you say you've created long-term full-time roles for candidates, that's really demonstrates the success of the overall program. So really great to hear about, Natalie. Given the size of the organization, and apologies, I'm kind of putting you on the spot with this, but is there anything outside of, you know, these initiatives that you would like to maybe call out as particularly special for an alliance? Doesn't necessarily have to be around advancing disability inclusion, but any maybe initiatives or things you're working on that you think would be good for us to hear about today?
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing I would like to say is that we're a sponsor of the Olympian and Paralympian, the Olympics as well. So that partnership has been very strong for us. And we celebrated National Persons with People with Disabilities there back in December, and we had some of our Paralympians come. We also had a buddy program that was particularly special, and I signed up for it myself. So you're buddied with a Paralympian, and it's a mutual beneficial. So they get exposure to the corporate world, and then you can learn and absolutely put us all to shame in terms of what people can do and they can achieve and overcome. So that was a really mutual beneficial undertaking that we took. One of the other things that I'd always like to call out is we're working with Sea Change around the area of mental health. And last year we trained all our people managers, so close to 100 people managers in mental health awareness. And I think it's about that reducing that stigma around mental health. And that's something that we're really proud of. And finally, one last push always for Women's Aid. So that's our charitable organisation that we work with, and that's our partner for the next 3 years, and our Stand Strong. So that's something just that we really like to get out the word about that. And we had our National Day there of Stand Strong in February as well, which was a great success.
Yeah, the breadth, Natalie, of the type of initiatives and partnerships that you have at Allianz is really so interesting. I think we'll be seeing Allianz as a finalist based on some of this conversation in the future again. But look, thank you again. A couple of short minutes never does justice to the full remit of work and awareness that you and the team are working on. But that's been so insightful. And thank you for that today, Natalie. And again, I just remind anybody on the line who has some particular questions, please hold them. You can either put them in chat or keep them for later in today's session when we can cover those. I might just take a moment to talk a little bit about Fianna Fáil, who were unable to join us today. Fianna Fáil, are the first political party to have had a disability network, and that was really noted by the judges. What they are really striving to do is to have better representation of the community, but really importantly trying to get individuals interested in politics and representing their disability on a more national level. Recognized by the judges was their efforts in this regard and the progress that they were making. So whilst not here today to tell us a little bit more about that, I think it was just an important point to call out as finalists that they've made some great changes, and having met Sinead and had some chats with her about that, it's highly impressive. So perhaps there will be occasion again for Sinead and the team to tell us a little bit more about that. I'm now going to move on to our third finalist organisation of the day, and Caroline Jones from Solas is here with us today to tell us a little bit more about what they are doing to advance disability and inclusion. In particular, some of the comments from the judges in this area were really recognising the great step change that has been made to represent and support those in particular with deafness. And Caroline, I won't steal the show by reading out all of this lovely comment that's here, because I think it might tell us more than it should. But really nice to have you today, Caroline. Would you like to maybe introduce yourself and then tell us a little bit about your activity at Solas?
Thanks, Oisin. Can you hear me okay?
I can do, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, just having a little bit of difficulty here with tech. So listen, thank you so much. I am Caroline. I am a white female. I was going to say in my mid-50s, but I just realised I'm actually in my very late 50s. And I am in my office today. We're in 2 days a week, so today is one of the days I'm here. So I just want to say thank you very much. As everybody else has said, it has been an amazing kind of a springboard, I suppose, being involved in the awards in terms of how it has pushed our organisation actually to really pay attention to what it's doing. We were doing things, but it has shone a spotlight for us in terms of the power of doing something in terms of advancing disability. So I work for Solace. I'm the engagement manager, which is the kind of transformational part of our people team. And we're a state agency with the responsibility to build a world-class further education and training sector in Ireland. And further education and training is for everyone and is available in every community. So we have social inclusion a mandate. So we were kind of looking at what we can do in relation to that. So I suppose one of the comments that the judges talked about was how we had transformed the world of work for 2 deaf employees. But I think while I know that we have made some small difference to their world of work, I actually think that their work with us has transformed the world of work for the rest of us, because they have actually really shown us what it's like not to be kind of recognized, to be silent and to be kind of shoved aside a little bit. And they've also showed us how very simple acts of an organization can make such a massive difference to people's lives, everybody's lives in the organization. And I suppose the key for us is actually the word taking steps, because sometimes I think it's really hard to go somewhere when you've no idea where you're going. But once you've taken the first step, every other step is a lot easier. And I'm with Solace about 5 years, and I kind of quickly realized that there was these 2 women sitting by themselves. And I hadn't realized that they were signing. But I was kind of thinking it was a bit weird that nobody seemed to engage with them. They were by themselves the whole time. And like that, I kind of shrugged my shoulders and said, oh, they seem happy enough. Just leave it at that. And then I said, no, maybe I won't. I'm going to try and see how, just check with them that they are okay and if they want us to do something about it. So I literally emailed and said, look, I don't want to insult or be patronizing or anything, but is there something you think we should be doing to make a difference in your life? And they came back very quickly and said, oh, yes, you should be doing a deaf awareness workshop for us. So we literally started with that. We engaged with the Irish Deaf Society. We did a deaf awareness workshop in the organisation. It raised really interesting issues around biases that we hold, but more importantly, it really showed us how people were just afraid to engage with our colleagues, and it was about raising awareness. And so the women that I work with suggested that we start doing Irish Sign Language because it was the key to communication. So we did that with a very small group of people. It was a level 3 qualification. Level 5 was kind of just post leaving cert. And I have to tell you, it was the most terrifying thing I ever did. I've never been good at languages, and this wasn't any easier for me, but you can't hide, you have to do it. It's a very visual piece. So we did, I think 9 of us or 10 of us kind of did the exams that you had to do all on video. But since then, we decided that we didn't need to do exams. It was about conversational ISL. And so we now have 20% of the workforce trained in ISL. So we can have just general chit-chat conversations around the organisation. And everybody that joins the organisation is made aware that this is available to them. As a result of that, then our 2 colleagues suggested that we would have a sign-only coffee morning. So we started by having 1 coffee morning a month, but that's now grown to 2 coffee mornings a month. And they're coffee mornings chit-chat, but they're facilitated by one of my colleagues who puts us right when we're not signing correctly. So thank you, Libby, for that. She keeps us all on point.
It's a learning experience for everybody.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, so that's really where I'm kind of in awe of all the other things that our people are talking to, because ours wasn't planned. It was very organic. It kind of just happened. And we're building on that continuously in the organization.
Yeah. Caroline, not only do they sound like all the great and right things to do, but they actually sound like a lot of fun. And it sounds like you've got great interest in the team for it. There are a couple of things you've mentioned that I'd just like to pick up on. I think they're really, really interesting. But I think first that Solace is a state agency.
Yeah.
I think it says a lot that maybe state agencies, which often don't get the best, I suppose, rep in terms of progression and advancement, are really leading the charge in my experience on a lot of these initiatives. So that itself is really interesting. Do you note that there's a real push from the government and state to advance disability inclusion?
Yeah, I think there is, especially, I suppose, in relation to disability, there's a quota. I hate that word, but that's the reality for people in public sector bodies. I don't like it, but I think if it makes a difference, it makes a difference, and it's a start, and it holds people to account. I think, like everybody, Oisin, there's an awful lot more that can be done to achieve greater equality for people with disabilities in the workplace.
Yeah, it's just a really good example of how you can advance things. The other thing, Caroline, that sticks with me and kind of resonates, because one of my favorite books is by an author called Margaret Heffernan, and I say business book, not like book that I go to sleep reading, but it's a book called Beyond Measure: The Big Impact of Small Changes. And in that book, we see examples of small things that occur in organizations that have enormous effect on culture or how a place is run. And you've commented on kind of the small changes that have had big impact in Solas. Could you maybe just tell us about one of those things that maybe is very obvious to you and the team now, but may not be to some of us on the call here today?
Yeah, I'm going to give you two very quickly.
Great.
The first one is just the fluidity. So my two colleagues would have sat separate all of the time and only communicated with each other. You now see them wandering around the place, having conversations all over the place with people, and like that, people approaching and knowing how to approach them so they don't frighten them if you just come up behind somebody. So there's just much more fluidity of movement, if that makes sense, between our deaf colleagues and the rest of the organisation. And to me, I suppose the thing that gives me the most joy is one of the comments that one of my colleagues made, is that she now has to be careful what she's saying, because before nobody knew what she was saying, whereas now there's so many people who sign, she can't be giving out her saying things. So I just thought, you know what I mean? That's just being part of a community. Yeah. It's just being a part of the Solas. Our values are tribe, and it's just being a part of our tribe. And to me, that was amazing that that's what she feels, and she's watched. So, well, can they sign? I have to be careful what I say here. So it's quite funny, I think, but very valid.
Yeah, it's brilliant. As part of my role in human resources, I'm always obsessing around onboarding, particularly onboarding, because I think that's the chance for anybody joining a team to see how we do things around here, what our culture is. I note some of the judges' commentary on you building in sign language to your onboarding process. What does that look like? Is that a mandatory section? Is it led by someone in the team? I'd just love to hear a little bit more about that.
So like everybody in the world of COVID, we had a very in-person onboarding experience, but then we had to change to virtual, and now we're trying to manage the hybrid piece. But in both sections of it, whether it's hybrid or in person, our wellbeing team speak to every new joiner that comes on board, and it's part of wellbeing. And we're kind of working at the moment in terms of ESG and also our own public sector duty into where things are placed. So we're a little bit of a jigsaw at the moment. So wellbeing holds that piece in terms of people's wellbeing. So people are invited to take part in the coffee mornings immediately from the minute they start. And then we have an ongoing classes, I suppose once a week. We have 2 Irish Sign Languages that go, they're only half an hour long. So people are welcome to join them, and they kind of run continuously in the organisation.
Yeah, it's fascinating, Caroline. Honestly, thank you so much for sharing what you and the team have done. Again, another very worthy finalist, and hopefully everybody will agree in hearing about the team Solas, what you've been doing, that we can learn some things from you. So thank you very much for taking the time. Again, we'll have some opportunity for Q&A if there's burning questions. I can see a couple of things coming through. We'll absolutely get back to those.
Thanks, Oisin.
Great. And I suppose now, for those of you who are at the event, the award ceremony, you may have seen Adele take the award from me. And Adele, you were very shocked.
Beyond shocked.
But I know when we spoke then, I was absolutely in no way shocked why the team at Mr. Price Bargain Goods had actually done so well, and it's an absolute pleasure to have you here today. As a winner of the category, what the judges had looked for and I think really found was an organization that demonstrated a really comprehensive approach to disability inclusion. And what I really note from a conversation with you, but also judges' commentary, is real opportunities for future progression for those with disability who have joined your team. So if you would mind, Adele, maybe introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about what you do. I know there's a lot, so we can chat through it.
Yeah, no problem. Well, my name is Adele McSorley. I am the operations director for Mr. Price. I am a female in my 40s. I have short light brown hair and I am wearing glasses, and today I'm wearing a green top. And my pronouns are she and her. Just I suppose a little bit about Mr. Price. We were born in the recession of 2010, so we've come a long way and we've been through a lot. We have 1,700 colleagues. The brand itself is a cheeky chappy. We tend to be a little bit of a disruptor in the retail trade and do things outside of the norm. And that thinking of doing things outside the norm was where we agreed at the very early stages that we would offer up opportunities to people who, in traditional recruitment strategies, reach barriers and, they don't get the same opportunities as everybody else. So we said that we would introduce practices to allow different ways of applying for jobs and different ways of operating. So from that point, Oisin, I think I'd like to just run the short video. I think it's a 1-minute video.
Exactly.
So our colleagues are just two of our disabled colleagues that took part can tell the story.
Great. We just can see it loading here. So
yeah,
technology is on our side.
Hope.
I think it was just like from the day I walked in on the first day of work experience, it was like everyone was so nice, like it was so relaxed.
One of the best places to work with for, staff is lovely.
So Patrick and Adele have added great morale into the Tallaght store itself.
Have really flourished and they've gained great skills through their work experience with Mr. Price.
February, Patrick had already been in the store, in the Tallaght store, and he was in as work experience, and he'd been here for, I'd say, 6 months before that, and he was just doing it generally 2 to 3 days a week and doing the same kind of jobs and tasks that we would do as normal staff members. He was then taken on and interviewed to get full-time employment within the store.
When you come in the morning, you get great, you know what you're going to do every day, the manager's one of the best. We know where we stand.
Adele came on a little bit after, and she started as doing a course as well, and she was taken on then because she was fantastic, like in certain sections and areas of the store.
I don't know, it felt like I was joining a family, like it was like, in a way, it was kind of like they adopted me, that way it wasn't like, outsider, that way it was kind of like I was always part of the family.
I see myself today, I know what's going on, I have a job and I'm delighted, in what I have,
Thank you. I always think Patrick's body language tells the whole story.
Yeah, what a powerful video. Thanks, a really nice lead into the story of Mr. Price.
It is, and just on that, like Patrick that's in that video, he was so anxious and so nervous and low in confidence that getting him in the door the first day was the biggest challenge. And he's such an integral part of the team now. And I've actually noticed him coaching new staff. And I don't mean training them, I mean coaching them. So it's just incredible to see the journey that he's been on. And he's just one person out of, I would say, well over 100.
Yeah, it's a real team effort to build your culture. I see the word family has come through so many times in that short clip alone. It's real testament to the team.
Most certainly, but the family part comes from the inclusive environment. So it's from us all working together and learning from each other. So you then see that the relationships aren't only in work anymore, they're outside of work. So I hear about five-a-side football leagues, I hear about 10-pin bowling leagues, and our disabled colleagues are really leading those. So they give such a culture and such a wealth to our business.
Totally. That's business resource groups plus some really in real life. I know, Idel, that the basis of, you know, your program for disability inclusion begins with a work experience program. Would you take us back to kind of how this has all started and you know, where you've got to now? I think it'd be really interesting for those on the call to hear the progression of the program.
Yeah, absolutely. So we started working with the rehab group and the National Learning Network, and we were taking in students and working through a work experience placement. And that organisation is fantastic because they tailor the work experience along with what your findings are. So for example, at the moment, we're working with a young man and he's having trouble with numbers. So they're now changing his days in college to work around the number aspect. So he'll be able to use cash registers and be involved in stock control in the future. So as we started to grow as a business and we grew in numbers with the National Learning Network, we then realized that we had something special here, that we had future employees. So we joined in on a partnership. And within that partnership then, the work experience is the first of the pillars. And within that work experience, it's very, very important for us that it's real work experience, that it equals the work of the colleagues that are training the student in. You know, it's very, very meaningful. It's not sweeping the floor. It's not photocopying. They're learning to do everything that their colleagues do. And then throughout that, depending on the time period of their placement, we will have set goals at the very early stages. And the student will have a buddy, and their buddy will mentor them throughout the program and help them through personal stuff, as well as, you know, learning how to use a till or learning whatever the task in hand is. And the students themselves will have goals that things that they really want to overcome. Then the second pillar is recruitment through the rehab group and the National Learning Network. So we will try to match the roles that we have available with students who have qualified in their QQIs. And that again will lead into, and a lot of those students won't have worked with us initially. Some will and some won't. Sorry, I know my camera's going funny.
No problem. We can still hear you and see it.
Okay. And then the third one is the training and development of the Mr. Price team, so that we get educated and we learn about disabilities. We learn about the biases and we get to understand how to overcome it, and then how to get the most out of our students, how to understand if it's a hidden disability and there's a behaviour linked, how do we adopt our ways and you know, allow for accommodations so that student can really excel. So that you know, in a nutshell, that's how it started.
Yeah, and you know, we've talked on a couple of the, you know, other finalists today is, you know, how this is really a team game, and you know, to have a team in particular of maybe store managers who have real awareness of, you know, individual needs and individual supports. How do you prepare managers for, you know, the onboarding of, you know, 2 new team members? What does that look like for you?
Okay, so we very much lead by example, and we show our managers the way. So we will have done disability education, you know, trying to build disability confidence. Because one of the things our managers will say, like, I am afraid, you know, I've heard, what if I break the person? So it's just the nervousness around it. So the education and the training helps to overcome the stigmas and overcome the biases and just build confidence and say, yay, this is something that I want to do and I want to help. And then as soon as the individuals come into the organization and they enrich with their personalities and with their stories and interact with the other teams, the fear all drops and it just becomes something that we do. And the disabled person is a colleague. There's no difference, it's maybe they have a few accommodations that are required, but that just becomes part of the day-to-day life.
Yeah, I love that term, disability confidence. And I think that is often the unconscious bias that so many of us can carry around, not fear. Having that understanding, the fear of, yes. what should I or can I do? But as you said, taking steps is the best way forward. I know this program will have started at some point with 1 or 2 individuals, but I know it's got really big scale now. Would you mind just telling us a little bit about, what proportion or number of your workforce, identifies having disability?
Yeah, so we haven't tracked our numbers for the very simple reason that, I really wanted our colleagues to be our colleagues. Yeah. So since this award, that question has been asked a lot and we've tried to backtrack. So we know that we have well in excess of 100 colleagues. Yeah. The numbers in some of our stores is 1 in 5 to 1 in 7, which, we would like to always have it as, as equal as possible. So, I would say about 1 for every 5 colleagues, we would have 1 disabled colleague.
Yeah. Again, fascinating, how you've developed this program out. For, you and I have had a conversation because I'm so interested in, how could we replicate something as, powerful as you and the team have there. Would you have any advice, Idel, for, some of us on the call today thinking about, how do we ourselves become more active, really push ourselves to advance disability inclusion? What could you do based on your
I would
experience?
definitely say, similar to ourselves, to build a partnership with a disability organisation so that they can give you the confidence and be your support network, and also can give you almost like a recruitment patron, students to bring in on work experience, people to get started. And that partnership is for us the success, the key to the success. Yeah, I suppose another thing would be just to lead by example, to give the opportunities to get yourself started, and just don't wait for the policies and the procedures to be perfect. Just give the opportunities and let it grow organically, but just keep minding it and nourishing it and making sure it's not just a policy, that it's a policy but there's actions behind it. And then the next one would be train. Just keep training your team and keep revisiting the training, and realize that the vast majority of your training is going to come from the colleagues themselves. So just talk to them and to say, what do you need? How can we support you? And then it'll all just fit into place.
Yeah. Caroline, or Idel, you make it sound like it's very straightforward.
It is very straightforward.
I know there's a huge amount of time and effort goes into this, but I think the reward is always when you see the success of the program. I know this has been a huge part of your ED&I strategy in Mr. Price. Is there anything else that you're working on that you think would be good to tell us a little bit about?
Well, we're in the process at the moment of building our D&I framework.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be a framework across all dimensions of D&I. So I'm myself signing up to a UCD course to try to help me build this framework and then work with other organisations. We're talking to the Irish Centre for Diversity as well to help us build on that. And one of the big things that is in and around disability that we're working with the rehab group on at the moment is, in order for us to build managers of the future, we are putting together a programme called Campus to Career. And this will be where disabled people who have qualified in management in different universities and colleges around Dublin will come to us, and we will build a programme to get them set up and to get their experience established.
Yeah, it's brilliant, and I hopefully from this call today, Idel, what an incredible and worthy winner you and the team are, Mr. Price, for this great work. What I take such encouragement from, and thank you to the Irish Centre for Diversity for helping organise sessions like today. The power is how we learn from each other. Things like the framework, I know there are organisations here on the call today who definitely would be capable of providing some input and support on that too. But thank you, Adele, again, really, again, a very worthy winner.
Thank you, Oisin, and thank you to the Irish Centre for Diversity.
Yeah, interesting how time has passed so quickly on this call, and I think we're fortunate to have a couple of minutes to take some Q&A. James, is that right? We probably have some questions already in the
We do indeed,
yeah.
And if you don't mind, I'm just going to comment myself. I think I was really blown away, and I think some of the keywords I jotted down across all of the panelists that interlinked really nicely was, the idea of it being disability led, that idea of nothing about us without us, that we design for diversity, design with disabled people. Let's not talk about disabled people, let's talk and design with them. I think that's really powerful. The whole idea of partnerships there with, WAM, and even listening to you, Caroline, talking about, how it happened organically with a dialogue, with conversation, that was so important, that the deaf colleagues literally were involved and that happened so organically. I think that's really, really spectacular to hear as well. And I think it's important to say as well, even Fianna Fáil, that piece of representation and having disabled people, because we know as well that disabled people do enter the workforce and do enter certain political life at entry level, and it's about that piece of career advancement and representation. So that's really good to see that they're taking that lead as well. And then Adele, I think what struck me as well is that piece of the lifelong journey throughout the employment career, because again, there's this stereotypical view that disabled people occupy jobs and not careers. And I think that's really what struck me there around having disabled talent is opening up the world, that we all have different intersections, but having that link, with work experience and having a mentor and somewhere to call work and having that sense of belonging. So I think that was really, really strong for me. So just to go to the questions, if that's okay, we do have a few here. And the first one is a general one for the panel, and I'll open it up to the panel, is how do we spread the message to get more disabled people to enter the workforce? So how do we spread the message to get more disabled people to enter into the workforce? Does anybody want to come in there with that one?
I'm very happy to maybe share the Aon experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And please, I hope I didn't overstep on anybody.
Yeah, so you go ahead there and I'll let Donald come in then. Brilliant.
Perfect. Thanks, James. I think, certainly awareness of being an employer with equal opportunities is such an important point. What we and Aon have had huge feedback on is a very simple message at the end of all of our jobs to say, we are open, we are an equal opportunities employer, we offer positions to those who have disabilities, both visible and invisible. Such a small thing which I maybe underestimated the power of, letting individuals know that we are open and available is important. I do also think that a recruitment process that is suitable to individuals and not just a broad brush process is really important. As I went through today, I was asking about onboarding specifically, because I think that's really an important point. But I think demonstrating you're very open employer and very visibly I think is a good starting point. There are probably some other very helpful views on the panel on this one too.
It's very interesting. Thanks for sharing that. Donal, I'll go to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of want to echo a little bit what Aisling said. The proactive promotion of the positive stuff that you're currently doing is very important, but also to understand that before COVID, 80%, it was estimated 80% of disabilities were invisible. That's jumped to around 90% when you take into the effect long COVID has had on a lot of individuals. The chances are, and I think with the whole move towards self-identification, people are realizing there are a lot more colleagues that actually they already work with that have disabilities, and understanding that is a good jumping off point. Engaging with those employees that you're already working with and making the environment more inclusive, more comfortable, and more accommodating, you'll find that that will have the desired effect as well. I mean, it's the field of dreams approach. If you build it, they will come. But engage with the individuals that you're designing for, engage with people. They'll tell you exactly how to make a more inclusive environment, and that will then encourage more individuals to apply for it, apply for those positions. So be best in class, and everyone will show up.
Thanks a million, Donal. I see, Natalie, you're unmuted there. Do you want to come in?
Yeah, it was very much in the same vein in terms of the simple asking the question at every opportunity. So it's from an interview stage, that's where we, again, giving people the opportunity to disclose if they have any additional needs. And it should just be part of the conversation. I think it's embedding small measures at every step, I think, is key for it.
Perfect, Natalie. Thank you for sharing that. Caroline or Adele, do you want to come in that question? Adele?
Yeah, I can come in there. I definitely, for us, we had the partnership, of course. So the partnership led to, immediate, direct people coming forward. But also with the partnership, we created a longer version of that video today. And it's on our website, it's on the rehab group's website, and it's out there in general. And from that, we have had direct contact from disabled people who said, look, we're hitting these barriers on a regular basis. And we see you have staff in your shops, are there other roles available? So both for the shops, and we from there have taken we've taken on more organizations first and foremost, and we've taken on more people into our admin office. So I definitely think the more you can get out there and the stronger the message, the better.
Great. Adele, thanks a million for sharing that. Caroline?
Yeah, it's more of what everybody else has said. To me, it's about, like, we can say loads of things and have them in our documents, but it's about living it. And I think somebody told me recently that if you do something negative, 3 people will talk about it. Or sorry, if you do something negative, 7 people will talk about it. If you do something positive, 3 people. So you have to keep on continuously push really hard to get the positive message out there. So I think that, and I also think what Idal said earlier is about your own staff internally and the training. So people are disability confident. And just Adam Harris said to us about recently about the sign, he was saying that people with autism actually use sign quite a lot. So it kind of, you can organically move. So we're saying, okay, is there something we can do for people who are neurodiverse within the organization to make it more? So again, it's about doing what you're saying on the tin rather than just having it on the tin. That's what I think about it. Yeah, thank you.
That's fantastic, Caroline, thanks. And I think that segues nicely into our next question that we have. So I know it was mentioned actually earlier on around, quota, or I know it's the comprehensive employment strategy that we have in Ireland, which does have a percentage where there should be 3 to 6% of disabled people in employment, and it should be higher, of course. But with that in mind, the question is, we know that the government have some employment supports. Do any of the panelists use these, or have they accessed these? So for any of those who are listening that maybe don't know the government support, some of them are around maybe adapting the environment, and you can get funding towards that, or the wage subsidy scheme, where you can get some financial assistance to support some disabled people to get into employment. So did any of the panelists engage in any of those employment supports or not?
Yeah, I can come in there if that's okay.
Yeah,
so the wage subsidy would be the one that we would most actively use. And it helps in terms, again, to encourage our managers to work with disabled colleagues. Because there will be a little bit of downtime and a little bit of extra time needed to get to know the job. So in that case, that when the wage subsidy is there, the stores are allocated additional finances. So, they can kind of have that person plus another person. So it just encourages them to get started on it. A few things with it, I suppose, is that the minimum hours is 21 hours. So what we would find for a lot of the colleagues, that they really need to build up to those 21 hours, and we may never get there. So in one sense, it'll work for some colleagues and it won't work for others, because it's just too many hours to get started. In terms of, there's other resources that are, I suppose we're dealing at the moment, trying to get a visually impaired colleague to join our team. So we're working with some of the state organisations as well, in order to facilitate that. So they're fantastic individuals, just very, very under-resourced. They just need a lot more finances and a lot more help.
Yeah, and thanks, Adele, as well, for outlining, the whole idea of which wage subsidy scheme around the 21 hours and all of that and how it works. I think that's really important for people listening to know that there is them supports out there as well to open up the accessibility in terms of recruitment and all of that as well. And particularly for some disabled people who are listening as well, because there is that genuine fear. I remember 16-year-old James throwing out CVs in Longford saying, will I even get into this job because of my disability? It's not accessible, this, that, the other. So it is good to know that there is them supports there as well. So does anybody else want to comment on that? And if not, Donald, I see you nodding there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually very auspicious, because before joining the panel, I was listening to another panel there by the Disability Legal Network, and Siobhan Long from Enable Ireland was highlighting the fantastic grant there that needs to be more widely utilised, as it has been completely underutilised at the moment and no one's taking advantage of it. There's the Workplace Equipment Adaptation Grant, and that goes up to €6,350 to help adapt a business to accommodate incoming employees with access needs. But training can be added on top of that, bringing it up to a total of €9,500. In addition to that, there are disability awareness grants as well. If you want to do disability awareness training for your employees as you are taking on or becoming more aware of the needs for employees with disabilities, you can get up to 90% of your disability awareness training covered by the government. And it's not just a one-off, one and done. You can get, I think it's up to €20,000, up to 90% off of that for the first year. And then the second and third subsequent years, it goes to 80%. Both of these grants are completely widely underutilized, and they are available to the private sector. So I just wanted to take a moment to highlight those ones.
That's great, Donald, as well. And I think as well, we can't forget as well, the state do have an obligation under, of course, the United Nations Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities, which we did ratify as a country in Ireland in 2018. So it's good to remind everyone that and to keep the pressure on the government in that sense as well, to support accessible recruitment and employment for everyone. Anybody else want to respond to that particular question, Natalie or Oisin? Oisin, do you want to come in there? So you've on music?
Yeah, I would say, by my own admission, we've not utilised what is available, and I think it comes back to that really, astute observation you made earlier, James, which is partnerships are such an important part of this. Both partnerships with experts in specific areas, but then partnership as a group and a collective to really learn from each other. The pen was out as you were talking, Donald, as I learned today things that I did not know. And I think that is a really fair assessment, that maybe it's not showcased or as easily accessible to all of us to see what is available to support. But thank you for sharing that.
Great, Oisin. Okay, I don't see anybody else unmuting for that question, so I might just go to one final question, if that's okay, before we wrap up, because I know it's coming to lunchtime as well. So there is another question. Is there any specific areas within disability we'd like to see more profile or representation and greater opportunities when it comes to recruitment? So anybody want to take that? Maybe somebody we haven't heard from, maybe Caroline or Natalie. So any areas within disability we need to see more representation in from your own experience?
I suppose for me in our organisation, like we have the quota, say the 3 to 6 quota, and we always like overshoot it. But like sometimes I don't like quotas as such, but it does. But I actually think that the whole broad spectrum, I don't like it being confined to any one particular element or area of disability or gender or whatever. So I think, you know, kind of the whole thing I was talking about earlier on about the Irish Sign Language and Autism Ireland using it, and as I am using it for different things, that I think there is a space we can, and I think that organizations need to look at, I mean, we're talking about reasonable accommodation there. So just if you had neurodiverse people, how we can develop our organizations to be more accommodating. So it doesn't matter what the disability, but that we have the ability to be able to take people on. So I suppose my answer to that is, I think everybody needs to be represented in the workforce. So I wouldn't like to contain it to any particular sliver of a group. Do you know what I mean? That again, that to me, that's discrimination in a way. So
absolutely,
yeah. So that's me, James.
No, that's great, and I think that does marry quite well what we're talking about today. And that idea, you know, diversity, equity, inclusion, you know, where everyone should be allowed and able to participate despite their impairment. So I think that's fantastic. Just really briefly, does anybody else want to come in there? Happy enough, Natalie?
I could just add. So it's very much of the similar opinion. I think by looking at maybe one aspect, and again, what we did, one of our AHEAD graduates has epilepsy. So what we did is we did a walk through both with AHEAD and with that individual, and some of the accommodations in terms of lighting and noise and kind of scent. What we noticed, we also did a migraine awareness, and it's like you're talking about intersectionality. So when you're looking at maybe one group or one individual, and by making some accommodations, it raises everyone else up, and you know it has an impact on the wider community. So I think a lot of what we've learned and what we're doing, it's about when you do for one, you're actually doing for a whole lot of other people, and then they will become more comfortable in terms of identifying themselves, and then it leads into that conversation to make it a richer, more inclusive environment.
Thanks, Natalie. And I think that ends on a really nice note, the whole idea of when we design for all, we design for diversity, we include everyone. I think with 2 minutes to go, I might wrap up if that's okay. I just want to say a big, massive thank you to our host, Oisin, and sponsor, and to all our finalists as well. I think you all deserve a big round of applause. To our ISL interpreters as well, and the backroom team in the Irish Centre for Diversity. Just remember, our webinars are recorded. They are on our website, and you can register for all our other webinars there as well. So that's www.irishcentreforddiversity.ie. Thanks everyone for joining, and
James, thank you as well to you. We can't let the moment pass. You've made a huge contribution today. Really appreciate you and all of the Irish Centre for Diversity team. Pleasure to have been on the call today.
Thank you very much. Thanks everyone, and enjoy your lunch.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you everyone.
Bye bye.